here's my question about America. Where is our nation in regard to friendship? In regard to everybody getting along? In regard to civility? We look around and we realize in America, friendship is broken. It's not working. There's bad blood, there's bitterness, there's hostility. It seems to be a growing tsunami of all these negatives. We see it in the news, we may hear it in conversations with people, and it's certainly happening in the constant conversations of the internet. All of that social media isn't very social these days. How do we solve all this? Well, first, I want to tell you what I learned from a book that I read this past winter. It's a history book, and it's got a long, long title, but every part of it's important. The Lost History of Christianity, the 1,000-year golden age of the church in the Middle East, in Africa and Asia, and how it died. One thing I loved about this book was that as I was reading it, I saw the answer to a question that I've been asked 100 times. As someone who's been a missionary who promotes taking the gospel to all the nation, often people will ask, well, Phil, what about all those people who are living in Asia and Africa all those years that never heard the gospel? And what this book teaches is, oh, yes, they did. Because from 400 to 1400, in many, many corners of Asia and the Middle East and Africa, in the most powerful and populated parts of those world areas, there were strong, vibrant Christian churches, sometimes in the minority, sometimes a significant, sometimes in the majority, and sometimes a significant minority. But they had an effect on their communities, and they were spreading and growing, and it was a beautiful thing what God was doing in that neck of the woods. That's what I liked about this book, but boy, the second half of it was hard, because it was all about that end of the title, and how it died. And he reports, and it didn't die exactly the same way and at the same rate in every one of those countries where the church was present. But eventually it did, sometimes dying out totally, and sometimes becoming just a tiny percentage of the population, like 1% or less. There were many factors involved, but I just want to focus on one because I think it was the most important one, and it's certainly the most important when we're talking about friendship and how do we fix friendship in our nation. You see, the major cause for why those churches died is that they trusted in government more than in God. They trusted in political decisions and maneuvers that they made more than their friendship with God. They trusted in military might and decisions and alliances more than their alliance with God. And so they were trusting in human things to save their cultures as they were disintegrating about them. And this happened over decades, just as we've seen it happening over decades in America. The same thing's happening right now in the U.S. and in other nations on earth right now. There's Christians who are on opposite sides of the different social issues, the different moral issues, the different political issues in their nations. And even the Christians are yelling at each other, besides yelling at anybody else who disagrees with them. Our political jockeying is not going to solve this problem. It won't end the animosity, the hatred, and the disunity. You see, politics and government is no match for Satan. And he's the one behind all this. He was behind the breakup of all of those strong Christian churches in Asian and Middle Eastern and African nations during that golden age from 400 to 1400 AD. And he's trying the same tactics today. You know, we may be thinking that, well, Satan's so powerful, what can be done? Satan isn't powerful. God's the one who's almighty. Satan only has one weapon. He just uses it over and over again, and we fall for it over and over again. His only weapon is lies. And his favorite lies are the lies that are only 5% true. Or, 5% false. You know, only got to put in a little bit of falsehood, and we still got to lie, enough to lead people astray. And it's so little the part that's wrong that people don't see it. It's camouflaged by truth. You know? But you might be thinking, wait a minute, but this doesn't apply to me. I'm not echoing lies when I tweet things and send stuff by Facebook. We just don't realize that we are. You know, we think that, well, my opinion is absolutely correct, and there couldn't possibly be any objection to it. And even if that were true, often we pass on that thought and that opinion with a little innuendo thrown in, a little snarky dig. And even if it was true, the snarky dig, the anger and bitterness in the snarky dig has this result. We don't win the argument. All we do is increase our deafness, our ability to hear what the other person is saying. We lead them to be more deaf, and we cause all of us to be more reluctant to actually sit down, look at each other, discuss all the issues, the real issues, not the silly things that we're arguing about, but the real matters, and come to solutions that would really benefit everyone, taking into account everyone's concerns. That's what we need, but we don't seem to be getting it. You know, we look at what's happening, all the communication in our country that's just like this fire that's spreading. And we wonder, how did it get this bad? Let me tell you, when you are looking at something about interpersonal communication or feelings for one another, and it doesn't make any sense, it's absolutely sure that the devil is behind it. He's been sowing disunity, and we've been falling for it. Everything that we've been doing isn't going to work to solve the problem. What will? Could it possibly be that we need to learn how to be friends from our biggest friend? Yeah, that's what we need to do. And that's what we're going to do as we wrap up this message. Jesus has a few things to teach us in John 15. He shows us that the key to revival in our nation is as simple as God's friendship to us, and then us passing it along to other people. In John 15:17, Jesus says, love each other. That's so easy. And we all say it on every side of every issue. Oh, my approach is loving. But he's calling us to do the real thing. You see, in every single human relationship, we're left with a choice. Will we crush that person, crush their thoughts, crush their feelings, or will we cherish them? That's what love is. Satan's goal in everything is he wants to crush us by making us crush each other. God's goal, Jesus' purpose in everything, is for us to bring the cherishing of God everywhere we go, to replace the crushing that we hear echoing and blaring all around us. We're so afraid that, well, if I get close to somebody I disagree with, and maybe who's doing something that I think is against God's will, if I love them, if I put my arm around them, somehow I'm condoning everything they're doing, and we're so afraid we do nothing. But Jesus wasn't afraid. He was out there dealing with sinners all the time. He dealt with us. And he's not afraid to put his arm around them, and he's not afraid to warn them. Leave your life of sin. And because the love that he's shown, they're willing to listen. He can do the same in our lives. He'll show us how to love each other because God is love.